If worrying worked, you'd already have the perfect life. But guess what? It doesn't, and deep down, you know that. Let's talk about why you worry so much, why your mind spins endlessly, why you're wide awake at 2 a.m. running simulations of every worst-case scenario possible. Why that little voice in your head never shuts up. The truth, you don't worry because life is out of control. You worry because you're trying to control everything. Worry often disguises itself as something useful. It makes us feel like we're being responsible, that we're preparing ourselves for the worst, that we're doing something about the problems in our lives, but the truth is, worrying is not the same as solving. It's not strategic. It's not planned action. Worry is just a loop, an exhausting, repetitive mental habit that keeps you stuck in the same place, thinking the same negative thoughts over and over again. We've been conditioned to believe that if we don't worry, we're being careless or naive. Society often praises people who are always thinking ahead or on top of things, and that can turn into chronic overthinking. But worry isn't the same as being prepared. It's actually the opposite. Instead of focusing your energy on solutions or proactive steps, worry hijacks your focus and directs it toward fear. You rehearse worst-case scenarios. You obsess over what could go wrong, and you stay mentally trapped, convinced you're doing something important when all you're doing is spiraling. This is the key difference between problem-solving and worrying. Problem-solving leads to action, worrying leads to paralysis. When you problem solve, you identify an issue, explore options, and take steps toward fixing it. When you worry, you circle around the issue without doing anything about it. It becomes a mental habit, something your brain automatically does anytime uncertainty shows up. The more you do it, the more it becomes your default reaction to stress, anxiety, or change. And like any habit, worry can be broken, but only when you recognize it for what it is. You have to catch yourself in the act and be honest. Ask yourself, am I thinking about this to take action, or am I just stuck in a loop? That awareness alone can help you interrupt the pattern, because the truth is, most of what we worry about never actually happens. Studies have shown that the majority of our fears are exaggerated or completely imagined. Yet we let those thoughts dominate our emotional state, drain our energy, and control our lives. Worry doesn't make you more prepared. It makes you more distracted. It weakens your confidence, it feeds fear, and it keeps you from being present in your life. When you let go of the illusion that worrying is helpful, you can finally begin to replace it with something better: intentional thinking, mindfulness, and meaningful action. The goal isn't to never think about problems. It's to stop thinking about them in a way that paralyzes you. You don't need to be trapped by your thoughts. You can retrain your brain to respond differently. But it starts with admitting that worry, for all the time it steals, gives you absolutely nothing back. Your brain is an incredible machine, but it wasn't designed to make you happy. It was designed to keep you alive. At its core, the human brain is a survival tool built to scan the environment for threats, anticipate danger, and react quickly to protect you from harm. This system was crucial thousands of years ago when early humans had to face real physical threats, like wild animals or hostile environments. But today, those same survival instincts often get triggered by things that aren't life-threatening at all, like a tough conversation, a work deadline, or uncertainty about the future. The part of your brain responsible for detecting threats is called the amygdala. It reacts fast, often before you even realize what's happening. It sounds the alarm and puts your body in a state of alert. Your heart races, your muscles tense, and your thoughts start to spiral. This is helpful if you're in danger. But in everyday life, this constant state of vigilance turns into worry, anxiety, and stress. Because the brain is always on the lookout for what might go wrong, it naturally gravitates toward negative thoughts. This is known as the negativity bias. It means that your brain pays more attention to potential problems than to potential opportunities. It remembers criticism more than praise. It exaggerates risks and underestimates your ability to handle them. This is why, even when things are going well, you might still feel uneasy or stressed. Your brain is preparing for something bad to happen, just in case. This wiring is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to manage. The more you let your brain stay in this fear-driven mode, the more it becomes a habit. You start to feel like worry is just part of who you are. You accept it as normal, but just because the brain defaults to fear doesn't mean you have to live there. You have the power to challenge your thoughts, to slow down, and to consciously redirect your focus. Understanding this truth, that your brain is built for survival, not peace, can actually be liberating. It helps you see that those anxious thoughts are not a reflection of reality. They're simply your brain doing its job a little too well. Once you see the pattern, you can start to break it. You can train your brain to focus on solutions instead of problems, on gratitude instead of fear, and on the present moment instead of imagined futures. Happiness, peace, and confidence don't come from your brain's default settings. They come from you choosing to override those settings with intention, awareness, and action. Your brain wants to keep you safe, but you have to remind it every day that you're not in danger, you're just living. And life isn't meant to be survived. It's meant to be lived fully. Worry is rarely about what's happening right now. It's almost always about what might happen next. This is why worry is often described as future-focused anxiety. You're not anxious about the present moment. You're anxious about the unknown, the uncertain, the hypothetical. Your mind starts projecting possible scenarios, most of them negative, and suddenly you're caught in a mental movie of everything that could go wrong. This habit is sometimes called future tripping. It's when your mind takes a leap into the future and starts building stories that haven't happened and probably never will. You imagine failing that exam, losing your job, getting rejected, getting sick, or being embarrassed in front of others. You replay these imagined scenes over and over, convincing yourself you're just being prepared. But what you're really doing is mentally rehearsing failure. You're programming your brain to expect pain before it ever arrives. The irony is that the future doesn't even exist yet. It's just a concept, an idea. Yet you spend so much time and energy living there instead of in the only place that actually exists, the present. You miss what's happening now because your attention is caught in a loop of fear and anticipation. And what's even more troubling is that this kind of worry doesn't protect you. It doesn't shield you from disappointment or prepare you for challenges. It just creates unnecessary suffering in advance. Think about this. How many times have you stayed up late worrying about something that never even happened? How many hours have you wasted imagining the worst, only to find out the situation turned out fine or never occurred at all? This is the painful truth about worry. Most of it is fiction. It's a story your mind creates based on fear rather than facts. But because it feels so real, you react to it as if it's already true. This constant projection into the future also weakens your ability to be present. You stop noticing the good in your life. You become numb to joy, disconnected from gratitude, and restless even during peaceful moments. Because your mind isn't here, it's always somewhere else, playing out what-ifs that don't serve you. The solution isn't to stop thinking about the future altogether. Planning and preparing are important. But there's a difference between intentional planning and compulsive worrying. One is based on clarity and action. The other is based on fear and paralysis. To break the cycle of future-focused anxiety, you have to bring your awareness back to the present. Simple grounding techniques like deep breathing, mindfulness, or even just naming what's around you can help. You can also challenge your thoughts by asking, is this a fact or just a fear? Remember, you don't have to solve problems that don't exist yet. Focus on what you can control right now, because the more you live in the present, the less power the future has over you. When your mind starts to spiral with worry, it can feel almost impossible to stop. The thoughts race faster than your logic can keep up, and before you know it, you're overwhelmed, stuck, and anxious. But there is a simple, powerful way to interrupt this pattern. Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. This rule teaches you to count backward, 5-4-3-2-1, and then take immediate action. It might sound too simple, but it's grounded in neuroscience, and it works because it interrupts the automatic thought loops your brain is running on. Your brain loves patterns. Worry is one of them. When you've spent weeks, months, or even years reacting to fear with overthinking, your brain turns it into a habit. You start doing it without even realizing it. That's why the 5-second rule is so effective. Counting backward activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision, making, and focus. It cuts off the worry loop and gives you a few seconds of clarity, a small window to choose a different response. Let's say you're lying in bed and your mind starts racing with thoughts like, what if I lose my job? Or what if something bad happens tomorrow? In that moment, your emotional brain is in charge. You're reacting, not thinking clearly. But if you interrupt that spiral with 5-4-3-2-1, you shift control back to your rational brain. You snap out of autopilot. Then you do something. Maybe you sit up and take a deep breath. Maybe you remind yourself of what's actually true in the moment. Or maybe you write the thought down and leave it for tomorrow. That's the power of action. It creates distance between you and your fear. The rule works because it builds momentum. Most people stay stuck in worry because they never start moving. They think they need to feel ready or stop being afraid before they take action. But the truth is, action comes first. Confidence, courage, and clarity follow. Using the 5-second rule helps you take that first step before fear talks you out of it. The more you use it, the more you rewire your brain. You start replacing worry with behavior. You build a habit of acting instead of overthinking. You learn to respond, not just react, even if the action is small, like standing up, walking, journaling, or calling someone. It creates a shift. It pulls you out of fear and into movement. And that's what breaks the cycle of worry. This doesn't mean you'll never worry again. You will, but you'll know how to stop it before it controls you. With consistent practice, you start realizing that you have more power than you thought. You don't have to be a prisoner of your thoughts. You have tools, you have choice, and all it takes is 5 seconds to use it. When worry takes over, it often feels like you're trapped inside your own mind, unable to break free from the constant swirl of what-if thoughts. Your brain becomes a storm of fears, doubts, and imaginary disasters. The more you think, the worse it gets. In those moments, logic doesn't help, and telling yourself to just calm down doesn't work. That's where action becomes more powerful than thought. And that's exactly why Mel Robbins' 5-second rule is such a game changer. It offers a simple but highly effective way to interrupt the loop of overthinking and take control of your response. The 5-second rule works like this. The moment you feel anxiety, hesitation, or fear creeping in, you simply count backward 5-4-3-2-1, and then you move. That movement could be anything: getting out of bed, picking up the phone, walking away from a negative thought, starting a task you've been avoiding, or even just shifting your focus to your breath. The point is to take action before your brain talks you out of it. Here's why this rule works so well. When you count backward, your brain switches gears. It stops following the automatic pattern of worry and activates the part of your brain responsible for decision, making, and control, the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of your brain you need when you're trying to shift from emotion to logic, from fear to focus. By the time you hit one, You've interrupted the negative cycle and created a space for a new choice. Worry thrives in hesitation. The longer you stay stuck thinking, the more anxious you become. Your brain starts to build a case for every worst-case scenario it can imagine. But when you move into action, even if it's a tiny step, you take the power back, you tell your brain, I'm in control here, and over time, that small shift builds confidence. The 5-second rule is not about being fearless. It's about being courageous in spite of fear. It teaches you that you don't have to wait until you feel ready to take action, because that moment may never come. In fact, waiting for the perfect moment is just another form of procrastination. Using the rule breaks that habit and builds a new one where you act, take charge, and move forward even when you're scared or uncertain. This tool can be used in any part of life. Whether you're trying to stop a panic attack, start a new habit, end a negative thought spiral, or simply shift your mindset. It gives you an anchor, a reliable way to push through the mental fog and make a better choice. And when you use it consistently, your brain starts to learn a new pattern: action over anxiety, courage over hesitation, movement over mental noise. It only takes 5 seconds, but it can change everything. Here's the powerful conclusion that ties together the entire speech on this is why you worry too much. Worry has convinced you that it's helping you, but it's only holding you back. It's not a solution. It's a mental habit fueled by fear, not facts. Your brain was built to protect you, not to make you happy, which is why it naturally focuses on what could go wrong. But just because that's how it's wired doesn't mean you're powerless. Most of your worry isn't even about the present, it's about a future that hasn't happened. You're suffering over scenarios that may never come true, but the good news is this: you have the ability to interrupt the cycle. You can challenge those thoughts, shift your focus, and take control. The moment you feel yourself spiraling, you can use a simple yet powerful tool, 5-4-3-2-1, and move. That small action, that moment of courage, is how you take your power back. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to take the first step out of fear and into action, because life is not meant to be lived in your head. It's meant to be lived right here, right now, and the sooner you stop worrying about tomorrow, the sooner you'll start living today. So count it down, take the leap, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and live your life beyond worry.